Michelle, if you're okay, I'll just give a quick overview of what the process is before we get started.
Absolutely.
Good evening to the members of the board, to members of the administration, and to the members of our public that are joining this evening. We appreciate everyone taking the time. I know many of you are here directly because of the restart reopening plan, and we'll be getting to that presentation momentarily. Just for the good of the attending audience, the meetings of the Board of Education for an opportunity for the Board of Education to engage in a dialogue and provide information to the public. Joining on the screen tonight, you might see two boxes that are grayed out. Just so you know who's present, you have one of our members of our business office, Bonnie Cheney, who is making sure that the meeting is running well on the back end of the meeting, as well as our communications director, Kia Bergman. So in case you cannot see their names, especially when the meeting is public and recorded, I know it doesn't show names on there. My name is Dave Adderhold, for those of you that haven't had the opportunity to meet, Superintendent for the district, and it's my pleasure to turn the meeting over to our board president, Michelle Case, to get us started.
Thank you, Dr. Adderhold. Prior to us convening in this Zoom session, the board met in a different Zoom meeting for a closed executive session. So our meeting has been called to order, and so we can begin. It's really hard to believe, but it was only 4 months ago that back in March, for the health and safety of our community, we had to quickly close up our school buildings and switch to virtual and remote learning. That was the beginning of many incredibly long, challenging, stressful days. And actually, we never could have imagined back then that that was actually the easy part, and that planning for the reopening of our schools would actually be the hard part. So tonight, the reopening plan that will be presented is the result of hundreds and hundreds of hours of complex work by so many people under the leadership of our superintendent, who has been a tireless, passionate, relentless advocate for the health, safety, and emotional well-being of our students and our teachers and our staff. There are truly too many people for me to mention by name, but I would like to extend some thank yous to the district's reopening team and all the parents, students, educators, staff, health officials, school board members, and many, many other people who provided input and feedback and perspective and their insight into the development of our reopening plan. And now there's hundreds of people who have logged in tonight not to listen to me. So at this point, I will turn the meeting over to our superintendent, Dr. David Adderhold, and he will present WWP's Restart and Reopening Plan.
Thank you, Michelle, and good evening to members of the public that are joining us this evening. It's my privilege to present this evening's plan for our restart and reopening for the 2020-2021 school year. And as Michelle said, there has been a tremendous amount of planning and work that has been ongoing for the last several months as we thought through not only the closing of our school, but how we were going to reopen in the fall, depending on the scenarios and depending on the safety measures that need to be put in place. So I think it's really important for us to all understand that the district itself is bound by rules that govern public schools in New Jersey. And we have to operate within those confines. They have direct oversight by the Department of Education and the Commissioner of Education. And we are bound to work within those governing rules. And then there is the Governor of New Jersey and the executive orders that have been issued that also further govern the work that we're allowed to do. WWP has to work within the confines of the rules and regulations set forward by the Governor and the Commissioner of Education, the Department of Ed, ultimately the State Board of Education, and the legislature. And so there are certain things that we need to, that we can do directly, and there's certain things that are within rules of the state. So as of right now, the state of New Jersey on June 26th has issued a reopening road back plan. and from the roadback plan, set forward documentation about what we are or not allowed to do for reopening. And it was just this past Monday that Governor Murphy, a week ago Monday, Governor Murphy indicated in a press conference that parents would officially have the right to move to a virtual only model. Now that is something that we believed was so based on the reopening plan and the wording within the roadback plan, but it was officially noted last Friday. And just to members of the board, I'm getting some feedback, so I'm sure members of the public are. If you don't mind making sure that you're muted to the administration of the board, I'd appreciate that. So again, it was just this past Friday that we officially got documentation then from the department officially stating that we could move to a virtual only model. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the process, the work to date, where we are. And again, it's also important to know that this is one moment in time, that as of July 28th, this is where we are today. There's so much work ongoing. By no means is our planning work done. There's so many components that we're working to figure out and the different impacts. So it's important that parents know that this is an evolving and ongoing process. And these are unprecedented times. So the restart and reopening plan serves as a compliance document, quite frankly, to the New Jersey Department of Ed requirements of the roadback plan. It's to make sure that we as a district have certain measures put in place. Now, to date, the Department of Ed has not issued any kind of compliance checklist or given any direct guidance about what needs to be within the plan. So working with members of 3 different committees, or really 4 different committees, we have a curriculum instruction committee, we have an operations and facilities committee, a health and wellness committee, and a governance committee. So these 4 committees have worked together to determine the core components of what we believe is critical to be in a reopening and restart plan. It's a living document that needs to make sure that we're focused on health circumstances of the time, the guidance and conditions are shifting within our community and within our nation, and that we're making sure that the health, safety, and wellness of our staff and our students is being taken care of. And we're very mindful that everything that we do is going through the concept of health, wellness, and safety. It's not intended to answer every question, and there will be more questions that have been raised after this presentation, and that more questions will be raised after you see the more than 60-page document that we'll release officially tomorrow on our website. We'll also send an email out to all parents, linking an executive summary with a copy of tonight's, or with a link to tonight's presentation, as well as a link to the reopening plan. So that will go out to parents sometime once the video is officially uploaded to the YouTube channel, but it will go out sometime tomorrow. And once parents go through that, we're sure that additional questions will rise, and you'll reach out to building administration and central office administration for additional questions and dialogue. So throughout the summer, we've been going through, again, representatives of district administration, our school nurses have been and our counselors have just been instrumental. Hundreds and hundreds of hours have been spent collectively in these areas. We've been on statewide committees, legislative committees, sit on the Senate task force for reopening schools, and we're constantly working to try to drive for answers for our families. Some of you know I've asked lots of questions to our school leaders, trying to drive through and get clarity for our school communities. Again, health, wellness, and safety of our students and staff is the #1 priority of our governance team. The continuity and advancement of student learning and making sure that evolves. Parental choice was instrumental in what we believed, that we really felt that families had a right to choose whether they wanted to come in person or to a virtual model, so either hybrid or virtual. And then that we know that we're going to need to continue to enhance our educational skill sets with respect to training and support, making sure that we're supporting staff as we went from crisis teaching in the spring to a more robust virtual model in the fall. Protocols and processes, again, regarding transmission of COVID and health-related concerns regarding COVID was another key component, and the Health and Wellness Committee has really done some great work in that area. And we're bound by the roadback plan to follow both the CDC as well as the New Jersey Department of Health plan. The plan itself doesn't reference the American Association of Pediatrics plan. So big differential between those is AAP requires or suggests a 3-foot barrier. CDC suggests a 6-foot barrier in social distancing, and we're adhering to the 6-foot social distancing barrier. Well, cited along with the roadback plan, there are multiple policies that are needing to be updated to ensure compliance in district process. So this evening, there is a first reading of these 6 policies. There is an emergency adoption of the 6 policies, and followed on September 1st board meeting, there'll be a second reading to sort of verify. So what the emergency reading does, or the allowance, is it allows it to go immediately in action. So it waives the right to go to the second reading in the interim, pending the second reading. So it gives basically a 30-day window, 35-day window where the policies themselves can be enacted until a second reading. These policies can be modified slightly at the second reading if need be, or if further guidance shifts with evolving CDC guidance in particular. Now, topics included in the restart and reopening plan include transportation, food services, COVID symptom reporting, requirements of PPE or personal protective equipment, enhanced cleaning protocols, grading, instruction, scheduling, and whatnot. So wanted to give a little sense of where we're going instructionally, what the day could look like, and a little sense of where we landed with respect to the surveys that went out from families. So we had 50% of the families at the high school wanting essentially 50% in a virtual only model. Middle school showed 60%, 4-5, 65%, and K3, 63%. But 2 schools in particular were well over 75%, and that was Town Center and Wyckoff. So there was a little bit of a difference between Hawk and Dutch Neck and Town Center and Wyckoff, but almost over 75%. Wyckoff was 79% of families saying they wanted a virtual only experience for their children. But as a district, we landed just around the 60% mark. So our first survey that went out matched, slightly rose over our first survey as parents then opted with making direct selections. Now, some questions have existed around, can we make additional selections? And we asked for July 14th because what has to happen is buses need to be established, bus rosters need to be established, as well as class rosters need to be established. So we're really asking at this point that families have made their selections. Now, making a selection from hybrid to virtual is relatively easy. We can move students within rosters. It does impact the actual instructional design though. So parents need to understand that if further changes are made, it will have a residual impact on the way in which classes are taught. And we are building some virtual only rosters, and that is something that one of the reasons we needed to establish. Remember, it's not just students that are concerned and parents that are concerned about reentry. We have to be very mindful of our staff. Now, there are rules about leaves, and there are federal requirements around this. There's local requirements around it. There's also components with respect to contractual leaves, illness, childcare leaves, and whatnot. So as parents are making these options, staff members are making determinations and seeking potential consideration about not returning, whether that's asking for some kind of federal child leave, which does exist under federal rules specific to COVID for a 10-week period, or with respect to medical leave, or requesting accommodations due to the health and wellness of a loved one, or someone that they live with, or someone that they have direct care over. So one of the challenges that the district has with building these schedules is, quite frankly, we don't necessarily know which staff members to date who will come in. Now we're requesting, we're asking for documentation, but that could be evolving all the way up until the end of, or right till we get to the school year. And so we are going to be working on an evolving sort of jigsaw puzzle, so to speak, with respect to building our schedules and our rosters. So we also have evolving healthcare considerations. So as data comes in, and depending on what the medical circumstances are and the COVID-related symptoms and the transmission rates and all that kind of good stuff with that happens out there, we're going to know more and more about what happens with the state. At any point with any of the virtual or hybrid models, the governor could elect, just like he did back in the spring, to close school districts across the state due to concerns with respect to transmission and COVID. Governor Murphy has made it very clear that he feels that schools need to be open, and he said that as early as yesterday. But at the same time, he's also intimated that he will be watching the trend data and making determinations right up until. So as a district, we need to be very much prepared to transition or quote unquote pivot, as it talks about in the reopening plan, from virtual to close, or hybrid to a closed virtual model for all. That means parents are going to need to be prepared to have backup plans with respect to childcare considerations should we be shut down again like we were in the fall. And we do not know yet whether the shutdown will be a complete shutdown, or if it will be like a stay put order, or if it will be a shutdown that allows extended day programs to continue. And why I mentioned that, I have a future slide on that, but we do intend at this point to work to offer some form of extended day EDP program. We are working through cost points, we are working through staffing, but we are going to work to try to open that to provide assistance to families that specifically need it so that they can get to employment. Now that will be a cost model, no different than what we had prior to. There will be some different considerations that need to be made with respect to A week, B week, and whatnot. So let me talk a little bit about the model. So what will they look like in the fall? So in order to provide consistency for our students and the pivot between all virtual model and in a hybrid model, we are going to follow the same school hours between virtual and hybrid. Now, what that does mean though is school's going to be a little earlier than it was last spring. We're going back to our early dismissal schedule, and you have to understand that that is driven based on the busing, based on elementary, and then backing into the high school and the middle school. So our high school schedule and our middle school schedule will go from 7:40 to 12:05, and our elementary schedule will go from 8:50 to, I believe it's 3:20, I believe it is, on a future slide. We will follow an A week, B week, which means that students will be placed in cohorts. Cohorts are aligned to family groups. And we have at this point been able to drive families into an A week or a B week. So students across multiple buildings will make sure that the children and any resident of that home will be assigned to the same week. And then we will assign transportation from that, and students will attend. So if this is an A week, students are in this week, and the students in the A week schedule will be virtual in the B week. Same would be opposite for the B week students. Students in the B week would be virtual in A, and then in person in a B. So what that helps with is social distancing. And again, from classroom capacity component, there is a square foot ratio that we need to be mindful of to ensure social distancing within classrooms and to keep the 6 foot buffer between students and adults. And so that's some of the reason we go there. And so students will be 1 week of a half day in person, again, up to the early dismissal schedule, and then next week virtual. And then again, we have been able to accomplish the second bullet, making sure that families and siblings are connected into the same week. Virtual only model is really simple. I mean, they're going to follow the exact same schedule. It's going to look a little different, K5 versus 6-8 versus 9-12. But essentially, students are going to follow the same exact schedule, and I'll show a depiction of that. The rosters themselves are what looks a little different. So at the elementary school, again, 8:50 to 3:30. I said 3:20 before, to 3:30. We'll follow that early dismissal schedule. So in other words, students will be on site from 8:50 to 1 p.m. There'll then be a dismissal, and in the afternoon, there'll be virtual classes. So once students go home, transport home, have lunch, there'll be then 2 virtual periods that students will experience. During students in-person week, again, there'll be some form of break. We will, for in-person, we'll be looking at everything from recess to masking breaks to some kind of snack, whether snack will be outside, inside, socially distanced, still working through some of the particulars. I know there's nervousness around eating on grounds, which is one of the reasons we're not having lunch The idea that we can't have any mass gatherings. We do not have the ability to feed the students on school grounds from a meal distribution standpoint, from a monitoring standpoint. But we're also pretty nervous about having masks come off for any prolonged length of time. Students on the virtual week will follow, again, the same schedule. For elementary students, they'll begin with the morning meeting, then they'll follow, and we looked at this from the perspective of, what was the original parent surveys really drove through the importance of the core reading, writing, math, and making sure that when students are on site, that they have direct exposure to those three core content areas. There'll also be opportunities for at least one on-site special area class daily. And when their students return to the virtual instruction, there'll be some form of science and social studies and additional special area classes in the afternoon. All virtual, again, will receive instruction during the same window, and there'll still be breaks that will be coincide with the in-person model. For students experiencing that all virtual experience, there will be opportunities, again, for morning meeting, the reading, writing, math, participate in at least one virtual, and then the afternoon, again, very similar. The question of will they be in the same classes exists at the elementary. And so we're looking at this in sort of three different buckets of schedules. An all virtual section, then there'll be teachers that teach both, that partner with an in-person section. So if a teacher is working with an in-person cohort and they have, let's say, 24 students, an A week and a B week cohort, when the students are moving to in the A week, we find, especially at the K-5 level, a very difficult ask to have teachers to teach both in-person and virtual students at the same time. So we are going to partner an in-person teacher with a hybrid teacher that has a reduced roster. So if that virtual roster is 12 to 14, when the A week kids are in person with 12, the B week roster will partner with a secondary teacher. So you will have a teacher that might move to 26 students virtually. There'll be a virtual teacher that has virtual all the time, and there'll be one teacher that has a cohort. So if Mr. Toscano and I are co-teachers, he has a consistent 14. I have the 24 for in-person. On my A week, I see 12. He has his 14 plus my 12 B week students. So that means when I'm in person, my in-person 12 will only be with me. I will not have to worry about trying to teach a secondary roster. Now that works relatively well with regular education classrooms. Where it doesn't work well is with singleton classes, such as some of our special education programs, where you have a split roster of a class roster of, let's say, 6, and 4 students are virtual and 2 students are in person. But we do have instructional aides and others that will work to support the teacher in grouping strategies. So it's going to look a little different depending on your children's experience. And this does not work clean at the middle school or the high school with respect to the way the rosters are moving. But we're trying to find ways to minimize the virtual and in-person instruction at the same time. What we also realize is we need to make sure that we're buying tools for our teachers to manage hybrid learning. We did not have, we had Google Meet, but we also needed to make sure that we had some different breakout tools. So we will be investing in some Zoom licensing for our teachers so they can use the breakout room functionalities and whatnot. So when we're talking about synchronous learning, we want to make sure that we're giving teachers the tools that they need to gain access to their students effectively. And Google Meet is a nice platform, but it doesn't have enough of the functionalities. Here's an example of an elementary schedule. What you see on the right in purple is a virtual student schedule. And what you see on the left is the in-person schedule. So anything in that beige or tan is on site, and followed by the dismissal time period where there's small groups, ensemble areas, followed by dismissal and break. So you see a midday break from about 12:58 to 2, followed by 2 virtual periods. For those of you really wanting to dissect this PowerPoint will be available online tomorrow and will be linked to the letter. So you'll be able to really see this. It's also in our restart and reopening plan. So you'll be able to look at it and ask specific questions to building administration and Dr. Nathan, or Assistant Super of Curriculum Instruction, myself. Kindergarten is unique as well. And what we know about the kindergarten schedule, of course, is we're on a half day already. But in order to accomplish the need of hybrid versus virtual, we had to look differently from the rosters. and look at in-person all at the same time and virtual all at the same time versus by the bus routes. And we had to do this because of the number of teachers. We wouldn't have enough teachers to teach in person with socially distancing. And if we did that, we would be over the capacity limits. So again, we had to look at, and again, with A week, B week, you also have to then look at, there has to be at least one in-person teacher that's doing the virtual instruction for the groups in the morning, followed by all the teachers really moving to virtual instruction in the afternoon. So our kindergarten teachers are going to be teaching both in the virtual model as well as in an in-person model, depending on selections that parents have made. Some might ask about DLI, the dual language immersion program for K as 1 and 2, that's at Hawk and Dutch Neck. We're still very much working on this model. So we're still working through staffing ratios. Again, different complications due to certificates, different complications due to language acquisitions and making sure we're supporting, but also different complications with respect to the fact that you have about 50 kindergartners trying to take dual language immersion Mandarin, but only one Mandarin teacher. And obviously that doesn't work. And then when you look at the hybrid model of how many parents are selecting to come in, about 2/3 to 3/4 of families are asking to come in person. And that makes sense due to the model, but what it does do is it means one teacher can't meet all those needs, plus do the virtual at the same time. So we're looking at our staffing ratios to see if there's any way we can provide support to look differently at the implementation model. So we're currently working on it. We've had multiple meetings in the last 2 days about this, and more information to the DLI community will be forthcoming from Ms. Sizemore and Dr. Nathan in the days ahead as we work through this. Both the building administration of Hawk and Dutch Neck are also very much involved in these discussions. The middle school and high school, it's a 740 to 250 model. Again, following an early dismissal schedule, follow the A week, B week, and this again will no lunch dismissal before lunchtime, and then students will return home at 12:05. There'll be a break for transportation and lunch, followed by virtual periods. Students that are on the virtual week follow the same exact schedule. So there's still an opportunity to follow the same exact schedule. Middle school teams are going to be divided into cohorts. Again, depending on the number of students that register for in-person versus not. We will have students cohorted by team, and then students are going to essentially be placed in a room to limit movement. So this idea of cohorting or podding will be in place, maximum 12 in classrooms, in most classrooms, unless the square footage allows for more. And it's also to minimize disruption in the hallways. Lockers are not going to be loud. So students are going to carry what they need. Most of the stuff, materials will be brought home and stay home. And then you're going to see the teachers rotate, not the kids at the middle level. High school is different because of the amount of student choice in electives. There's just no way to cohort and pod because we're not team-based at the high school. So there will be 4 periods of instruction in the morning at the high schools. The first one will be about 70 minutes because we do anticipate potential delays upon entry into the building with safety checks and temperature checks and whatnot. So we did allow for an extra 10 minutes. And then basically it's a 4-day rotation, 1 through 4, 5 through 8, followed by 4 to 1, followed by 8 to 5. 2 afternoon virtual classes every afternoon. And those will rotate. So in a 4-day period, you'll see your in-person class twice and once virtually. So that is something that it really doesn't matter if it's A week or B week. Over a period of time, you're still going to see all the number of in-persons and virtual classes. Curriculum will advance throughout. So it's really important for families to understand that on a virtual week, it's not about just a review. It's going to be advanced curriculum. So students are going to need to digitally connect and make sure that they're paying attention, participating in the classroom experiences, and continuing their learning forward. There will be grades reestablished. We're not going to follow the model that we did back in the spring when we moved in crisis. Gradebook will be open again because we want to make sure that parents are able to check on assignments, but also we want to make sure that counselors and administrators are able to make sure that's keeping tabs on students. Google, that move in the spring, we felt made sense in the moment in crisis, but now that we're sort of living into this new reality, we know that we need to continue to advance our learning and reestablish some of our grading protocols. For the all virtual students, they're going to receive instruction during the same windows of time in some of the very same classes. Now, I think it's important to know that once again, you go back to teacher availability it's possible that a teacher is absent, that a teacher is granted an accommodation, or a teacher has a medical need, or a teacher qualifies for a family leave. So there are going to be times when parents send their students in a hybrid model, and you might have only 3 of 4 teachers present. And in that second, let's say in period 1, you're there for your TOEFL class or your physics class. Period 2, your AP history class. Period 3, your Spanish 4 teacher is out on a leave. And so, but they're teaching virtually. So students are going to be placed in a designated area to receive the instruction from the teacher that could be virtual. There will obviously need to be a monitor in place maintaining social distancing. And this instruction will still be received for all the students, but it's just going to be virtual. And then period 4, the student might proceed to a coding class or a robotics class. And so even within a hybrid model, depending on where the rotations work, it is possible that students will still receive some of their instruction virtually, even during the in-person day. Again, very important for families to know that there is literally no way to pull that off so that we can avoid that scenario from happening. And that's going to be a consistency that school districts see across the state. And again, on September 6th, the staff member could turn in a note, even though we're requesting that they let us know. Even in best scenarios, best laid plans, we could still have medical requests coming in last minute. We could also be flipped to virtual last minute, so the schedule itself needs to stand. So we had debated sort of tearing apart the entire schedule and trying to create virtual only sections, and that really doesn't work, because what ends up happening is you end up having classes of 12 to 24 in person. You're going to create hybrid virtual sections anyway. You also have singleton and doubleton classes that are of 1 section or 2 sections within a department that you have special teacher or teachers of special content knowledge teaching. You also have elective-based teachers that we looked at trying to, do we move around classes? And sometimes there's literally 1 teacher that might teach 3 electives and no one else has that content knowledge, or no one else has taught that material before. To try to rearrange everything is not just an inconvenience, it's not even a comprehensible project to put our high school administration and counselors on. And when we looked at it, the best thing we can do is try to keep the schedule moving, because there's a strong probability that we're going to pivot to closure. And so we are absolutely expecting that at some point during the school year that we end up pivoting to closure. And it's important that parents hear that. And this is especially true when you start looking at the symptoms. And I'll start getting into what some of those symptoms are momentarily. And so middle school schedule, again, I talked through it, but the idea is you're going to end up with some kind of team periods in the morning. It's going to look a little different by grade level about when the team periods are, because you have to counterbalance the electives to make sure that there's always enough elective teachers to teach on the off periods. So the team times will look a little different for A days and B days. So even within cohorts of an A week or hybrid 1 group and a hybrid 2 group, you're still going to have an A day, B day rotation at the middle school, and you're still going to have a 4-period rotation at the high school. So, there's going to be a lot of moving parts to how these schedules work. At the high school, you can see day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4 here, and you can see how the periods sort of rotate throughout in order to how we're going to end up making sure then the afternoon, that the afternoons all have different electives meet. I'm sorry, the different periods meet. So you will see all your classes twice in the morning over a 4-day rotation, and once in the afternoon over the 4-day rotation. Special education, just important to note that, we know that we need to make sure that the IEPs of all students are fulfilled as required under New Jersey Administrative Code. And our goal right now is to maximize in-person instruction to the fullest extent based upon parental selection. And in every program type, in every special education program, parents selected virtual experiences for their children due to concerns of health, wellness, safety of their children. Other families selected to bring their children on site because that what they believed was most important for their children on their learning trajectory. So with respect to, there is no wrong choice for parents. It's again, no wrong choice, but we need to find ways to meet the accommodated needs and provide the program. So we are looking at, are there ways to maximize in-person time? We're still working that through. And again, once again, one of the complications again becomes, if the teacher of record needs to be on a medical leave, what does that look like for delivery of instruction? Parents, if I'm painting a picture that this is complicated, it is, and it's complex It's beyond complicated. Complicated usually has easy answers. Complex has very difficult decisions that need to be made, and sometimes there's not answers that are easily attainable, if at all. We know that the counseling support and related services will need to be continued through the IEP, whether those are met in person or virtually. So we will be working to ensure that the related services and counseling services are continuing to be provided through the IEPs. I know Ms. Slagle and her team are hard at work trying to work through section analysis to make sure that we can meet the needs of students and to see how we can maximize on-site availability, and further communication to families will be forthcoming through our special services department. Building safety measures. So I know this is a area of concern for a lot of parents. We've received a lot of questions around cleaning processes, a lot of recommendations around cleaning processes with respect to things that may be happening with your employers or things that you've experienced directly. We know that we need to increase cleaning during school days. And one of the things that we know is we're really not going to be able to afford bringing in additional custodial staff. But what we can do is reroute. Our bulk of our cleaning is in the evening, which means we're going to be working with our construction management company, or excuse me, our building and grounds cleaning management company, ABM, to move some of our night crew to our day crew. Now, one of the ways this is going to be accomplished, quite frankly, is that there is not going to be an after-school club and activity period during closure. So we are not going to be running after school in the evenings. We're not going to be renting out our facilities. We're going to maximize cleaning to ensure that when children are on site, that we're protecting the health, wellness, and safety of our community, our school community, our teachers, our staff, which means we're not going to be then opening up our doors to evening rentals or weekend rentals. We're not going to spend all this time to ensure that the highest safety protocols are being met, only to let a group of 500 come in on a weekend and absolutely cross-contaminate the space and maybe not follow the same guidelines that we are. So we know that's going to create some hardship on community groups, but we also know that it's in the best interest of our students and our staff. We're going to make sure that daily cleaning has high target area, high touches, doorways, bathrooms, door handles, surface tops. Deep cleaning will occur after school, but within transitions, depending on some classes, one of the reasons to go week A, week B cohorts with cohorting is to ensure from an epidemiological standpoint that you have limited movement within those rooms and then those chairs about which cohort groups are there. It also helps from contact tracing standpoint. It's a little harder at the high school because the students are going to be moving rooms. And again, based on student elective and based on choice, there is no real way to cohort the high school students easily. So we're going to need to be making sure that we're practicing good hand washing and hygiene with respect to hand sanitizer, and that will be available in every classroom. We're going to have to maintain an adequate supply of PPE and cleaning materials within classrooms and within our school facilities. And again, hand sanitizing stations, not only in the classrooms, but in hallways and whatnot. So our building and grounds team has done a great job. We already have hundreds of gallons of hand sanitizer on grounds, and additional cleaning materials brought in, electric static sprayers and other kind of materials that are being brought in to do a high density cleaning of carpeting and whatnot. We also have HVAC work being done through the referendum and our ESEP in 5 of our schools, currently underway in 3 of our schools. So we are looking at our HVAC systems. We have bought additional ventilation systems for nurses' office. We've looked at 3 different types of nurses' offices. So nurses' office will most likely be moving in most of our spaces, so that we have a well room, a evaluation room, and a isolation room. So we're going to have 3 different types of nursing stations with cleaning protocols around all of them. We need to make sure that the student who's coming in for diabetes medication is coming into a clean room, is not going to be necessarily brought into a place with someone that might be with fever or other potential COVID-related symptoms. And so there's a lot of concerns. When you see the list from the CDC of some of the symptoms, it's a concerning list of how this is going to work. But for building safety measures, again, we're going to follow social distancing of 6 feet with the hand sanitizers, enhanced facility and bus cleaning procedures, cohorting and staggering in classroom release when possible, and following the DOE, DOH, Department of Health, and the CDC guidelines. Again, all these measures are in flux and they're evolving. So the CDC just on, I think it was Thursday, just released some additional guidelines. We're working through the Department of Health and our local Department of Health. And just real credit to West Windsor's Jill Swanson. Jill has been just a tremendous godsend to the administration and our nurses with helping us interpret guidance. So real credit to Jill and her leadership for West Windsor's Department of Health. Remember, our two counties have different health structures. West Windsor is a local health director. Middlesex County has a health director for the county. So just different levels of connection, so to speak, between the school district and the different Department of Healths. Health screenings and PPE. So these are the current list of symptoms that if a student has them, or a staff member for that matter, has these, could be considered a medical exclusion from school. So if a student was to come to a nurse's office with a headache and sore throat, that could be a 10-day exclusion from school, or will be a 10-day exclusion from school. So imagine how this hits with cold and flu season, when a student comes in with chills and a slight fever. In the past, they would have been called home. Parent would come, pick the child up, and you'd have to be under 100 degrees for 24 hours fever-free. Now it could be upwards of a 10-day medical exclusion or a negative COVID test. And as we know right now, COVID tests are taking anywhere from 7 to 10 days for just the return of the test, unless the new Rutgers test comes out and gets into a bigger thing. That's a 48-hour turnaround. What's missing in all these plans, and I'm sure parents are noting, is this idea of proactive testing. There is no statewide or national protocol around proactive testing measures. And so there is no guidance to us. There is no availability of testing to us. There is no financial assistance to us. And there's no protocol for any kind of widespread testing protocol. So there isn't one. And so in all the things that we're doing, I would say the one area that's truly missing in the plan, and is really missing from a statewide effort, is widespread testing. And that is a challenge. That is going to be a challenge that every school district faces. But going back to this list, you can see very quickly a tremendous amount of students and potentially staff members could be isolated and then sent home. And you can imagine the disruption to families as they then need to come and pick up a child with potentially fatigue or chills or muscle pain, and could be getting told, sorry, 10 days medical exclusion. And we have no choice but to uphold that. Now, the CDC has just put out some revision in this area that we're reviewing, but for the most part, this can absolutely hold. It did change the exclusion from 72-hour fever-free to 24-hour fever-free. So there is, without the utilization of medication. So again, constantly evolving as we go through this together. So daily health screening and questionnaires. Parents are going to be asked on a daily basis to fill out this questionnaire before students get on a bus. So will staff members. There'll be daily temp checks taken with respect to so some biometric screeners. There'll be at door entranceways so that we are not going to queue students outside for 30 minutes, but students will be scanned like airport scanning on the way into buildings. So we will have be using a technology to scan students and staff upon entry into the building. Students and staff will be required to wear PPE or masks. We will have face shields and other things available, but masks will be an absolute priority. We'll have cloth masks that have been purchased as a backup or to distribute to families, and we'll have cloth or surgical masks available as a backup if a student does not bring their cloth masks. Families, there's no guidance that says that families couldn't provide their own mask. So we're not going to prohibit that, but I would say that masks will be required. We are working through ensuring that we have a certain number of contact tracers at every building, and we're working with our local officials regarding contact tracing protocols. And again, we're following the DOE, DOH, and CDC guidelines. With respect to mental health screening, we have our parent university programs. We have been working to train staff through ACEs, or Adverse Child Experiences training. We're working through trauma-informed professional development, our staff wellness opportunities, our mental health first aid training, and our mindfulness and meditation training, and many, many others. This is an area that the district has put tremendous focus on in the last 5 years. Dr. McDonald and our our counseling department has really led the way. We also have a partnership with UBHC, or University Behavioral Health Center, Rutgers University, with 4 clinicians on site. So again, we are working on surveying of staff and students potentially before the new year to talk about supports that families may need. And we have over 200 staff members currently trained in mental health first aid. So we've really invested tremendously in this area, and a real credit to our Goal 3 SEL team that's been working through the strategic plan. Regarding policy and procedures, I referenced some of them, but we do need to have screening processes for employees and students about symptoms, contact tracing in conjunction with local health departments, written protocols for positive cases and communication to families and communities, readmittance policies, guidelines for nursing visits, and whatnot. Within the area of health, we also have increased training for personal protective measures that will be required, quarantining and separate offices of nurses' office, separate and apart from in like an isolation room, as I mentioned. We do have some concerns about long-term supply chain and the availability of supplies for disinfecting and personal protective equipment. The district has followed the Massachusetts model with respect to PPE acquisition, and we have been able to buy upwards of 12 weeks of PPE in advance. That's assuming 100% capacity, so we're in pretty good shape with PPE. It's just a matter of it getting in and being delivered on time. So we have a month to go, and we have about 50% of the material we purchased on site, but we are still waiting for deliveries. And so we do have a long-term concern about supply chain and upholding. Student, employee, and visitor contact tracing. So we do have to think about, when I say visitors, I'm not talking about school visitors as much as I'm talking about other adults that might enter the building, such as substitutes. We still could have substitute teachers and other visitors that are not necessarily, also construction, also Sodexo, also ABM. So we have other types of adults that work within our buildings, postal, mail delivery, package delivery, visitors to our building. We will be upholding a very strict visitor policy, not allowing outside visitors on grounds without stated purpose. So parents, visitors are going to be more virtual meetings, will be called for specific reasons with respect to their child. If a child is ill on grounds, it's very different. But we're doing that to protect your children, and we're doing that to protect you, quite frankly, and our staff. We have concerns about the availability of nurses. We have 3 nursing vacancies right now. We are bringing forward 2 recommendations this evening. But quite frankly, the number of nursing candidates out there in the field across all districts is very short. It's been an area of shortage. It's an area that we've actively advocated for with respect to statewide associations, and advocated with the Senate Task Force, and advocated for bringing retired nurses, both of school nurses as well as of the medical professional nurses, back into the fold without pension penalties, trying to get nurses back into the field. School districts are desperate, and we're at a time where we need extra nurses, not just the nursing staff that we have. And again, very difficult to find. And this is a nationwide problem right now. Food services and transportation. As you know, parents that were asked whether or not they would waive transportation. Waiving transportation, quite frankly, is a critical component of bringing students in on an A week, B week. Many districts are going to once every 3 days because of the social distancing requirement and the capacity. We're able to go to every other day or every other week as a result of being able to support less students coming on buses. The CDC requirements right now are 11 students per bus. Those buses are 54 passenger buses. That's a 20% capacity, right? So that is a major obstacle. And right now, because of the number of parents that have selected virtual and the number of parents that have waived or waiving transportation, we're able to accomplish transportation. So a real thank you to all our families that are working to find solutions to support us in this time. Food services, as I stated, lunch will not be provided or served, but food service distribution is still going to be ongoing for families that qualify for free and reduced lunch services. We have been doing this, and that's whether you're virtual or in person. We've been maintaining this through the summer. We just had a food distribution day on Monday. We're supporting approximately 500 students and over 390 families. And a credit to our food service director, Marcy Beller, and some of our local food pantries and local community churches and religious institutes that have come out and supported us with everything from milk and bread and cookies and books and gift cards and extra boxes of vegetables. It's been very heartwarming to see the community support and rally around families needing support. And because we are distributing materials our food in a 2-week shelf-stable style, it allows us to buy food differently, and it allows us to buy food that will help families, not just individual students, and it allows us to provide a different quality of food. So I'm just really appreciative to Marcy and the Sodexo team for the work they're doing to ensure, and a real credit to James Earl and Perry Ray and all our staff that have been volunteering throughout the last 4 months, every 2 weeks, to make sure that families' needs are being met the best we can as a district. A credit to the board for supporting us and supporting those families through the summer as well. That's not a requirement. It's something we want to do. It's something that we asked to do. It's something the board supported us with. So a tremendous thank you to the board through that. Again, I talked about transportation, but there's real concern about, obviously surface area touching between routes. Now, individual bus providers have all been getting talked to about how this is going to look, because they do more than one route, and because there's only 11 students being transported at a time per school, and because there's more seats than 11, they're going to stagger seats by different runs, so that when you're not going to have students sitting in the same bus on every run. There will be assigned seats. There will be hand sanitizer available on buses. And then the buses, when they get back to the bus depot in the yard, they'll be cleaned thoroughly before the next afternoon run. So there'll be multiple cleanings per day. Disinfecting and bus surfaces is going to impact some of the runs and some of the hours. But again, we've been working with our transportation partners in this area. With respect to field trips, there's not going to be any field trips. There's no field trips in the near term. And with respect to athletics, athletics is completely contingent on, one, whether or not the NJSIA has a season, and two, if the district chooses to participate in that season. So I anticipate a determination in the next 2 weeks regarding the status of WWP athletics. But one of the challenges on transportation, should athletics go forward, if a team has 30 players, you would need 3 buses to accomplish what used to be 1 bus because of social distancing requirements, different routes. That also means multiple adults across those buses, where you might have 1 coach or 2 coaches. You would now need somehow 3 adults so that there's a staff member per bus. So just, again, a lot of logistical concerns with respect to transportation and COVID and the social distancing requirements. Technology, again, our tech team continues to support families through the summer. As many of you know, or most of you know, we left the Chromebooks out in the hands of students and families throughout the summer. Our tech team's on site 2 days a week, making sure that our one-to-one devices that are out there are being serviced. Families, if you have not used the device all summer, please make sure that they're checking and working on them in August to make sure that they're working properly, and because there's lead time on getting them fixed and turned around, and we want to make sure students are operational for September. With respect to the tech infrastructure, supporting teaching, learning, and operations, obviously a lot of work going on there, making sure that we're staying operational with our network. And digital curriculum, this is something that a lot of free tools and providers were providing in the spring, not true necessarily in the fall. So again, we are working to make sure that Dr. Nathan and her team have a subcommittee specifically on looking at instructional digital curriculum tools to make sure that we're supporting students across the curriculum with digital tools and access. So we're building, we're going to need to continue to make sure that we're building plans for transition to distance learning. Those plans will be everything from building routines for one-to-one devices and blended learning, making sure that students at all grade levels understand the instructional process and how to access that. That also means that if students are on site in a hybrid model, that our teachers are going to need to make sure that the students are well trained in what it looks like when and if we go virtual. And again, working on our digital infrastructure. Extracurricular clubs and activities in athletics. Again, on July 10th, the NJSIA came out and postponed the start of the season from what has historically been practiced is around August 10th and August 17th to September 14th. with the knowledge that they would make a final determination by August 28th, whether or not that they were going to proceed with the season. Since making that determination, I think every college sport in New Jersey or college team in New Jersey has now had some form of cancellation against every league. We have seen Rutgers is currently in, football team is currently in being self-quarantined. And I believe it's like what, 4 major league teams are currently in some form of quarantine or games canceled due to an outbreak on an MLB team. You know, the major leagues across college sports are canceling. And so I have some tremendous concern about what this is going to look like, if it looks like at all. I would be lying to our community if I said that I was optimistic that sports were going to go off. I have tremendous concerns that this will not be a go. And it's not the right thing from a safety, health, and wellness standpoint for our athletes, for our spectators, and for our coaches. We are still in the evaluation mode, but I'll be honest, if I had to make the call today, I would not proceed. So we are currently evaluating this, and we are taking a strong look at what the future holds for athletics, at least in the short term. Clubs and activities will be virtual. Again, same thing with respect to the after school. We're going to lock our facilities down to make sure they're clean and prepared for the fall, for the next day. We need to make sure that we're operational. We need to make sure that our facilities are protected. Anyone who has spent any time in a high school or middle school after school with clubs and activities going on knows that it's like herding cats with respect to students everywhere. And so we are not going to be able to run clubs and activities. Plus, with a virtual hybrid model, you also have students that will be home, and while other students are leaving at 1 o'clock. There is no late bus. So everything really needs to, and then teachers are going to be going and teaching 2 hybrid afternoon classes. The students will be into hybrid afternoon classes. Students will not be coming back then at 3 o'clock or 2:35 to go to virtual to go on-site extracurriculars. Just not something that makes any sense. So everything that can be virtual, we still want students connected. We still want students working with each other. Anything we can move virtually, we will. Again, no utilization of outside groups, clubs, activities on weekends, evenings, and after school. And everything's going to be virtual until further notice. And the extended day program I referenced towards the beginning, but currently under development, but had an opportunity to meet with EDP staff today with respect to looking at ways in which we can make this happen. Right now, we're working on finalizing room utilization at our elementary schools and middle schools. And once we know the room utilization, we'll know how many rooms that we can bring forward with respect to how many classrooms and or large group spaces could potentially be used for EDP. And then based on that, then we'll have the opportunity to open up EDP programming. Most of the need that was identified in surveys came at the K-5 level. But again, and there is some desire for, if my student is on an A week, needing extended day morning and after school, as well as needing support on the B week for some families. So we are looking at offering all different types of models. Again, these are for-cost programs of extended day program, but we are working to bring forward something to the community. Staffing, though, due to a bill back in April called A3904, the community ed staff itself was not returned. So we do have to post and look to bring back staff for periods of time to try to meet needs in short-term basis. A3904 was a bill passed by the legislature and signed by the governor, which obligated school districts to pay the employees as if all appointments happened for the full year. If we go to full closure again, there's the belief that we would have to pay an entire year's salary, even if a month of school was accomplished for our EDP staff. That's a financial obligation we can't shoulder as a school district, and we shouldn't expect the community to have to pay salaries and wages for services not performed. So we are trying to find ways through that, but it does create some conflict. It's not as simple as just opening back EDP. We have to rehire staff. So this is going to be an evolving process. And so I sort of end with these last two slides. This idea that it's dynamic, evolving, and complex. And so I offer 4 headlines over the last week for you just to get a sense of what we're constantly being barraged with. So if we're watching sort of the news, in Austin, Texas, they had a group of staff come in, 700 employees, 51 currently confirmed positive COVID. LBI, a little closer to home, right? Long Beach Island, 24 lifeguards. They're all 16 to 20 something, all due to social gatherings. Currently, Homedale quarantining after positive case. Coronavirus contact tracers in Brick after another 20 teens were infected at a party. 20 positive teen cases over there in Middletown, and families refusing to participate with contact tracing. And then Rutgers football just voluntarily halted voluntary workouts, quarantining the team. Then we have now 100 cases. This was the evolving story. Due to the house party of the lifeguards is now up to 100 cases connected to some of these house parties. The governor mentioned on Thursday that we're potentially going to lose another $1 billion in state aid for school districts as of the end of August, which will be impacting October 1st through June 30th of this year. That would be very similar to the 2010, 2011 cuts, which was for the district over 7 million. So we'll see what happens there. There's a bill that lets them borrow money. So, but we're not going to know until 10 days before school starts. And then just like another one is the MAC. This is Ryder, Monmouth, Montclair, TCNJ, and other sports just put a hold on sports. So you get the sense that this is, again, an evolving process in front of us. And we are paying very close attention to what's happening in live time. There's obviously a lot of discussion out there with respect to unions and employees not feeling safe to return to work. That's happening within the state. The governor is currently advocating for the federal government to pass bills with respect to additional funding for townships, municipalities, school districts, first responders, hospitals, whatnot. And so we are in a time period where, as a school community, we're trying to find our way through all of that. So we're tremendously concerned about the health, wellness, and safety of your children and our staff. And out of an abundance of caution for everyone, we're proceeding very carefully with how we step forward. Obviously, social distancing is a high priority within that. The situation is very much fluid as we work to evaluate the information that's coming in front of us. Obviously, we have two options in front of us from the state, which is either like the virtual or the hybrid opportunities. And then we're working to follow what's allowable through those models. We have tools and platforms in place to meet the needs through Google Meet and Zoom and other social media platforms and other different technological tools for our staff. You know, we are clearly all in this together, but it is evolving. And as safety as our top priority, we're making sure that we step forward with care and concern for your children, for our staff, and for our school community, and for the loved ones that live with you in your homes, and for our staff members and their families. This has proven to be a virus that is not afraid of spreading within communities. And one of the reasons I'm convinced that we didn't see huge outbreaks in certain populations of our community is because districts shut down when they did. We shut down, our last day was the 13th. We made the notice on the 12th. And so that was 5-6 days before the governor. Well, that was allowable back then. The rules have evolved. And so right now we are faced with looking at reentry from the lens of what the rules allow us to do, being very mindful that at any moment the governor can issue rules that close us. And just tonight, Philadelphia school systems are moving to all virtual for the first 2 months of school. So that was a sort of like a game time announcement this evening. And so we're seeing that happen more and more across the nation in big school systems and in certain states. And we will continue to watch as this unfolds. You know, there's 10 seconds is a long time in a basketball game. Well, 5 weeks is a long time in COVID time. And so we have 5 weeks to the opening, a lot of work to do to be prepared. Our job, our responsibilities, be prepared for the opening to welcome students back, both virtually and in person, to welcome our staff back safely. We'll work to prepare to do that in the safest measure possible. But we also need to be prepared to pivot as a community, as families, to an all virtual experience should the governor move us that way. If not for September or November or whatnot, when all of a sudden cold and flu season hits and everyone that has a symptom is being medically excluded for 10 days. And so we just need to be prepared for the reality that's in front of us, that this is not going to be a normal school year by any means. In fact, if you really think about what it's going to be like for students that come in person, it's going to be hard. It's going to be socially distanced. It's not going to be hanging out with friends before school. It's going to be 6 feet apart. It's going to be masked. It's going to be a relatively sterile environment. And so I don't want anyone going into this without eyes wide open that this is not going to be normal. This is not going to be normal school. And if you're sitting there going, well, why would I even send my student at this point to an in-person? You can still switch to the hybrid, from hybrid to virtual. But if you're sitting there going, boy, I really want my student to go into hybrid, there's a waiting list. You can let us know through the WWPSIS email system, and we will work to meet accommodated requests based on the available number of seats that we've available. But really, we're allowing sort of one-way traffic at this point, and we'll then work to see if we can accommodate anything from that. So to the members of the board, again, I just tremendously grateful for the support, to the numerous dozens and dozens of staff that have participated in the process of building this plan, to the members of the community that are interested in actually reading the plan further. Again, an executive summary will go out tomorrow with links to the video, the PowerPoint, and the plan document itself tomorrow. So you'll have a couple different things that you can digest. And we will continue to communicate with our community in the days and weeks ahead as we prepare for the opening of school. We do anticipate putting out a series of videos that have not been created yet, starting to talk a little bit more in detail about individual experiences by grade bands, to give a little bit more sense of what it might feel like and look like at different grade levels. We'll also talk about a little bit more of the health and safety components and some of the protocols that need to be followed upon the reentry to school. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions from the board.
All right, Dave, doesn't look like the board has any questions for you now. Can't promise that there won't be more coming. So thank you very much for that presentation. It was a lot, and we appreciate all the hard work of everyone who is responsible for getting you to the point that you can deliver that presentation tonight. So thank you.
Thank you.
Before, when I sent the meeting over to Dave to speak, I failed to do something. So on our agenda, we're going to go back now to our regularly scheduled board meeting here. And on our agenda, we listed a number of topics that were discussed in closed executive session. I need to turn it over now to our board attorney, Mark Toscano, because the printed agenda is incomplete and he'll fill us in on the other things that we discussed.
Thank you, Madam President. Just in addition to the items that were noted on the agenda that was made public, the board also discussed for number 4, matters concerning negotiations and specifically proposed sidebar agreements with the WWPEA, the Service Association, and the Administrators Association. Other than that, everything was accurate.
Thank you. That brings us to the first opportunity for public comment. The board invites thoughts and reactions on agenda items and items of concern from members of our community who have submitted written comments on the form that was open and available on the district website up until the start of this first opportunity for public comment. All submissions containing all required fields completed will be viewed during the meeting and included as public comment in the official minutes. Each comment should be directed to the presiding officer, not individual members of the board, and will be read by the board attorney for 3 minutes in accordance with Board Policy 0167. If the comment extends beyond those 3 minutes, the full comment will be submitted and available as part of the meeting's public record. This public comment period shall be limited to 60 minutes. So I will thank Dr. Aderholt for sharing his screen and thank Mr. Toscano for reading our comments tonight.
And just to brace everyone, there's 22 public comments that have been submitted this evening. So I believe we have a 60-minute window, 3 minutes per comment. So as long as Mark's reading expeditiously, he should be able to accomplish that. So
Thank you, Dr. Adderholt. Okay. So our first comment, and I will apologize to everybody in case I mispronounce their names, is from Ashake Gupta, 41 Madison Drive, Plainsboro. Comment: make HOSHA, Health Occupation Students of America, an option at WWP South, as it provides students with the opportunity to see what the medical field has to offer. Our second comment is from I apologize, Devanjal Raskonda, and again, I do apologize, it's not intentional. Address 20207 Warbler Way, West Windsor. Please consider making HOSHA, Health Occupation Students of America, an opportunity at W South, as it provides students with a chance to develop leadership and collaboration skills, along with further insight into the medical field before going to college. Our third public comment is Miran Leviano, 3 Trumbull Court, Princeton. Can you describe a day in remote education, high school? I would like a thorough description of how much time synchronous and how much time asynchronous, assessments, etc. Comment number 5 is from Prateen Kondragunta, mailing address 4319 Quail Ridge Drive, Plainsboro. This comment is regarding Health Occupation Students of America, an organization targeted towards aspiring healthcare workers. Starting a chapter of HOSHA at WW South will be an amazing opportunity for many students like me to gain knowledge outside of the school curriculum. So it will help students be prepared for the classes they will be taking in college. Having the chance to compete in conferences and build leadership and team working skills in a fun and memorable way is perfect for students to become strong contributors to society. I've heard many amazing experiences from WWP North students and would love to be able to share the experiences with them. Aspiring healthcare students like me would greatly appreciate having this organization at school. Okay, number 6 is from Akshay Gupta, 41 Madison Drive, Plainsboro. Hello, my name is Akshay Gupta, and I'm a rising junior at WWP High School South. I would love to have HOSHA as an option at the school, as it is a great opportunity for students who want to pursue medicine like myself, along with the immense amount of research, the large variety of events. HOSHA would help me strengthen my leadership and collaboration skills, as I also have to share my thoughts and ideas with the judges and other students. At South, there are existing clubs that give students a chance to explore topics like politics, model Congress, and computer science, absolute coding. There's no opportunity like students like myself can use to get introduced to the many things medicine has to offer. My peers at North appreciate the club, and some have changed their career interests because of that club. Our next comment is from Devanji Raskonda, 2027 Robler Way, West Windsor. Hello, my name is Devanjal Rasonka, and I am a rising junior at WWP High School South. I think Health Occupation Students of America, HOSHA, is a great opportunity for students who want to pursue medicine. Personally, I believe HOSHA would help me strengthen my leadership and collaboration skills. Through HOSHA, I would be able to gain knowledge beyond school curriculum and participate in events that will help me display my dedication and interest towards the medical field. In addition, my peers at North had a wonderful experience, and we, students at South, would also love to gain this great opportunity. Thank you.
Mr. Toscano, if I could just interject one time, I think there might be multiple comments and that is just for the purpose of public comment and not supposed to happen. So I know this is a virtual format with submissions. I think we just have to be mindful of that as we go forward.
I just noticed the same names cropping up as well. Thank you, Dr. Adderholt. Yes. Our next comment is from Vina Hathak. We have an email address. The city is West Windsor. The comment is, in the wake of this pandemic, the community came together to help and support each other. Super Kids is a community outreach program organized in partnership with the West Windsor High School students. The program provides online summer camp to the elementary grades from the West Windsor School District. The idea was to help kids focus on the positive and on their role in the community during these uncertain times. The volunteers prepared the curriculum based on the kid attending the classes. Classes like origami, robotics, coding, science, storytime, dancing, singing, painting, cartooning, math, and STEM activities. They help support and encourage other kids to find purpose and motivate them to play their part in the
Sorry.
It's okay. Their part in the betterment and unifying community during these stressful times. There's a list of volunteers that are noted, as well as the list of the organizers from the Hawk PTA. Thank you, and just in interest of time, the names will be just noted in the record. Okay, the next comment is from Andrea Dominski and 17 Heritage, West Windsor. I would like to know what extent scientific studies of elementary school children are guiding the decision-making. Studies in Germany and South Korea are showing limited to no COVID outbreaks associated with elementary school openings in regions where the virus is contained. We are lucky to live in such a region, but still seem to be taking extremely tough measures regarding school openings. Thank you. The next comment is from Kashif Anwar, 52 Woodland Drive, Plainsboro. I would just like to thank the board and the superintendent for all their hard work in this unprecedented time. I particularly am grateful for the dual options we were given, and I hope that both are successful. I do have a question. Are the individual committee meetings open to the public? If so, how can we participate in those? Thank you. Our next comment is from Siddharth Satish, 36 Cartwright Drive, West Windsor. Drive West, Princeton. The comment, hello, my name is Siddharth Satish, and I am the 2021 New Jersey HOSHA president-elect. I will be the first ever state representative to HOSHA in the history of our school district and the third ever president-elect in New Jersey's HOSHA's history. However, all of this would not have been possible if I did not have a HOSHA chapter in my school, which I am both lucky and grateful to have had. HOSHA has not only given me a family and a group of outside of school with shared interests, but has also helped me realize my passions. While we are a future health professionals group, we do not limit members to simply immersing themselves in biology and taking exams. The beauty of HOSHA is in its options. I, for one, did not follow the traditional studying and taking test options that HOSHA provides. I competed in public speaking at the regional and state level, then chose to take an exam at the international level and placed 8th in the world for allied health and statistics while competing against both high school and college students. The ways in which HOSHA allows you to realize your passions, take risks, and get recognized is truly life-changing. Though through allied health statistics, I realized I would like to pursue a career in global health policy. If one organization can help a person so much, then it definitely deserves a place at both our schools and inside of our middle schools. Schools are made for helping give individuals a purpose, and HOSHA does exactly that. Give High School South, Grover, and community a chance to become a part of this organization. The next comment is from Jessica Seth, 9 Thornton Way, Belmead. My name is Jessica Seth, and I am the Assistant State Director for New Jersey HOSHA. HOSHA is one of 7 CTSO that is grant funded by the New Jersey Department of Education through Perkins funding. New Jersey HOSHA is part of HOSHA Future Health Professionals, a student-led international organization whose mission is to empower middle school, high school, and college students to become leaders in the global health community through education, collaboration, and experience. The purpose of HOSHA Future Health Professionals is to develop leadership and technical HOSHA skill competencies through a program of motivation, awareness, and recognition, which is an integral part of the health science education instructional program. Through co-curricular activities, competition events, leadership trainings, and conferences, students develop the necessary professional and interpersonal skills and have access to a community of 4,500 members locally and $250,000 internationally. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, all activities will be adjusted to a virtual format. I wholeheartedly support WWP South's initiative to begin a local HOSHA chapter. Should there be any questions, please feel free to contact me via email and it's an email address. The next comment is from Arain Adcroft, 400 Clarksville Road, Princeton Junction. Hello, I'm a rising junior at WWP South. After hearing about all the great experiences the student at High School North had with the club, I was intrigued by the idea of HOSA. After doing some research on the organization and their purpose, I was thrilled. Having a chapter of HOSA at High School South would be the perfect opportunity for students like me who are enthusiastic about pursuing a career in the healthcare field. I would definitely be an active member of HOSA if there was a chapter at South, and I know many other students would also be active members. South students like us would greatly appreciate having a chapter of HOSA at South. Next comment is from Adi Rangayan, 10 Colebrook Court, Princeton. Hello, my name is Adi Rangayan, and I'm a rising junior at WWP High School South. I think HOSHA, Health Occupation Students of America, is a great opportunity for all my peers and myself because it provides us with the possibility to expand our knowledge of the medical field beyond school curriculum and help develop leadership qualities. I would appreciate it if HOSHA is approved at South and would definitely participate in events it has to offer. Since all of the HOSHA conferences will be virtual, I think that that is completely safe to be a part of this club. Thank you for your time. The next comment is from Joyce Liu, 10 Greenfield Drive South, Princeton Junction. Comment, hi, I have a question regarding health forum for my son, who will be a new kindergarten student in September. Previously, it requires his annual wellness check. However, we have been stay at home since late March, and there is no other reason for us to visit the doctor's office. Considering going to the doctor's office has risk of getting sick, is there any flexibility to delay the requirement of annual wellness check after COVID-19 is no longer a concern? Thank you very much. The next comment is from Raghav Mehrota, mailing address 4 Hickory Court, Cranberry. Hello, my name is Raghav Malhotra, and I am a rising junior at WWP High School South. I recently found out about HOSHA, and I think it's a great opportunity for people who want to pursue medicine in the future. My peers at North were able to gain knowledge beyond the scope of the school curriculum, and we would like to have these opportunities as well. Myself, along with my friends, would definitely join this club and would greatly appreciate it if it gets approved. The next comment is from Annette Fuchs, email address, West Windsor. What exactly are the hours for the kindergarten classes? We were supposed to be in the PM session. The next comment is from Veronica Mino, 41 Galston Drive, Princeton Junction. I am always saddened when the administrators of a school building say no to students without giving a reason. A few weeks ago, I was contacted by a group of South students that are highly motivated to bring HOSA, Health Occupation Students of America, which is an international career and technical student organization endorsed by the U.S. Department of Education and the Health Science Technology Education Division of ACT to South. The South students have worked very diligently and did a PowerPoint presentation, which was emailed to Mr. Leppold and Dr. Royster. However, the unsatisfactory answer they got from Dr. Royster is extracurricular and student-run clubs will be revisited 1 month after we are physically back on campus at High School South. Am wondering, does Dr. Royster know for sure that all students will be coming back to campus in the fall? The first HOSHA competition is October. I believe this was a very dismissive answer to give, given the fact that the school has a responsibility to provide opportunities to all students. The students have contacted Ms. Jessica Seth, who is the Assistant State Advisor for HOSA in New Jersey. Ms. Seth presented me a plan for this academic year where the HOSA competitions will take place virtually, given the pandemic situation that the U.S. and the world is living. The students have me as their advisor for this student-run club. Therefore, All the basics are covered. In addition, as a parent of a future South student, I find it overly offensive that North South a chapter, however, Mr. Leppold in South does not want to create one. Why? Dr. Adderhold, can you please explain to me why? Given the fact that our taxes go higher and higher every year, it is only logical for parents to demand more as we are paying more. I would like to understand what the issue that Mr. Leppold and Dr. Rooster have in order to work on it and have this club approved before September 2020. This is, I believe, a repeat. Do you want me to just read it anyway?
You know, I'm not sure if it is.
Okay, I apologize. I think I just remember the mailing address, but no problem. From Rajat Corona, 50 Cranberry Road, Princeton Junction. Hello, my name is Rajat Corona, and I'm a rising senior at WWP High School South. I believe HOSHA would be a great opportunity for aspiring healthcare workers to get an idea of the topics that they will be learning in college. Being able to join HOSHA, especially as a senior, would be a memorable way to finish my high school career and prepare myself to pursue a career in medicine. Knowing the topics that I would be exposed to during the educational journey towards being a healthcare professional will immensely help me, as learning about the topics presented in HOSA would aid with a smooth experience in college. HOSA is a great opportunity to build team working skills, to create beneficial connections, and to make memories along the way that students would not forget. Consider adding a chapter of HOSA in South would be greatly appreciated by me and the students alike. Next comment is Hassan, 7 Sparrow Drive, Princeton Junction. Good evening. My name is Raika Hassan, and I am a rising sophomore at WWP High School South. I believe HOSA is an incredible opportunity for students at South to discover more about the medical field. HOSA will help improve our speaking, leadership, and collaboration skills. As someone who has wanted to be a neurologist for as long as I can remember, I believe that HOSA will give me necessary and valuable experience that will help me for the rest of my educational career. We have a severe lack of medical clubs and groups at our school, which is extremely disappointing to the number of students who are interested in the medical field. The only club they have to turn to is Red Cross, which is overpopulated, giving members little to no actual experience. A club like HOSA would do wonders for our students and our school. Please consider making this amazing club in addition to our high schools. Next comment is from, I'm guessing the field just got cut off. Mayank Chawan, 7202 Blue Way, West Windsor. Hello, my name is Mayank Chauhan, and I'm a rising senior at WWP High School South. I would definitely benefit from a HOSA chapter at South, as I am passionate about the medical field. My peers at North were able to learn so much from HOSA conferences and would love to gain this wonderful opportunity as well. Thank you. The next comment is from Makaran Bidwai, 217 Carnegie Center, Unit 7782. The comment is as follows: some concerns. A website. How long should a remote school day be? There's no consensus. In spite the title, the 8 sample states have a mode of 180 minutes max for high school pupils, much lower for lower grades. The WWP cannot expect pupils to be glued to a computer screen from 0850 to 1520 with 4-minute breaks between periods. It is impossible to port the offline model to an online model. A sane model that comes up again and again as optimal is grades K through 2, 1 hour a day, rest is self-directed work with supply of materials from the school for hands-on, minds-on options. Grades 3 through 5, 2 hours a day, ditto.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Grades 6 through 8, 3 hours a day, ditto. Grades 9 onward really must be converted to community college due to the prevalent drug and alcohol use, STD, teenage pregnancies, and other issues that are typical of maturing into adulthood, as well as they're already given the street village learning that happens in material of school or unschool or homeschool. In the absence of such morphing of schools, grades 9 through 12, 4 hours a day with interactive hands-on minds or options. 2, on hand sanitizers. Most are unsafe. Google News Today and Daily for 2020, July 20, 2022 news samples are, and it gives a link to 2 online articles. I guess this is point 3. It is also apparent that the virtual learning model will not have the same commitment of resources as the hybrid model that may such the oxygen and shortchange the virtual model. And the WWP cannot attempt to fit a square peg in a round hole. Given this disparity must be resolved. A parent pay the same taxes for a diluted virtual model. I'm in favor of virtual only model where parents take partial or total responsibility of making room for a variety of learning experiences for their pupil. However, it must change the formula of the property taxes, lower them, and going forwards, the virtual model is here to stay. Eventually, the offline model will be a vanity, not a necessity. Next comment is from Adam Huang, email address and West Windsor. As one of several students who applied to take an advanced math course at Princeton University, the proposed schedule for hybrid and virtual classes concerns me as it would conflict with the Princeton class. I was really looking forward to having experience in a college level course directly related to one of my majors of interest. So I was hoping this issue could be considered and hopefully resolved in some way with the class schedules for high school.
That's the last comment. I'm going to stop share screen.
Thank you, Mr. Toscano. That will close the first opportunity for public comment. Dr. Adel, do you have any comments at this time?
Just 2 or 3, if I could, just real quick to the young man right there about Princeton University and classes. That's a concern that happens every year, whether it's virtual or hybrid or just like a normal schedule. College classes always conflict when students have earned that right. So we always work with guidance counselors and administration to try to find a path forward, if we can, we will. So I would just say, just because you saw the schedule tonight doesn't mean that option's off the table. It just means we're going to have to creatively look at how to support you in your learning. And we're going to need to make sure that you get connected to your counselor and your administration so we can look at it. And Dr. McDonald always gets involved with trying to help that out. He's the Director of Counseling, Health, and Wellness. So that is something that even in a perfect environment with a normal WWP schedule, conflict would arise because college classes have a certain day, and with our drop rotational schedule, it always creates a conflict. With respect to HOSA, I appreciate the students and their passion for coming in this evening. That is very much a decision that's made at the building level with respect to student-run clubs. I know Dr. Royster and Mr. Leppold. I spoke to Mr. Leppold specifically about this when I was made aware that the club request was out there. He assured me that they're still going through the process. I'm not aware of any denial. I'll follow up with him directly. But if students feel like they've met a obstacle with respect to a process with a club advisor and or a process for bringing forward a student-run club, there's a process that goes through the student government that Dr. Royster oversees, and that's true in North as well. Club ideas are brought forward. They look across the different active opportunities for club and activity offerings to see if there's any parallel courses or programs, and clearly it doesn't sound like there is much of one here. And then based on that, it is then forward to the principal for his review and Mr. Leppold's review. And that's at the discretion of the principal. With respect to volunteers, and all volunteers for any club and activity need to be board approved, and there are no board approved hosts of volunteers. So it's great that there might be an individual that wants to work with a group of students, but that still requires a process of fingerprinting and board approval. And so if the students at HOSA do not feel like they've met satisfaction at the building level, their next step would go to Mr. Earl. And Mr. Earl's on the screen here. He's the Assistant Superintendent for Pupil Services and Planning. And you would just reach out to Mr. Earl directly if you're not receiving satisfaction at the building level with a process. It sounds like a great experience for students, and it sounds like an absolute worthwhile group. The reason sometimes you get different club activities at different schools with respect to student-run clubs is the student-run clubs are brought forward based on student interest. They are not stipended activities, so we have not put a cap to make sure that there's direct consistency between the two schools. Where there are stipended positions, there is direct consistency between them, but when student interest yields a growth student experience, it's for organizations that are not competition based that leave campus. Clearly, it sounds like this currently, obviously in a COVID world, is going to be a club or activity that happens virtually. But if that ever moved beyond virtual, that would be an absolute concern because you don't have any ability to go to competitions without a stipend club advisor. So that would just be things that would need to be worked out over time, but a discussion that can be had. And there's one comment regarding annual wellness checks. Annual wellness requests are a requirement of enrollment. We have worked with families in the spring that had specific concerns or doctor's offices were shut. We know that most doctor's offices are open for wellness visits at this point, but if there are direct concerns with respect to family, and some families have reasons that they might be sheltering and not able to go to a doctor or might being cautious, I would say to reach out to Dr. McDonald or Mr. Earl with respect to specific family requests, and we can look at an individual case by case. If a student is participating virtually, we can work with the family perhaps, and if a student is going to be going on site with respect to the timing of the physical. So when we had a lot of spring with respect to families registering virtually, but not having the ability to get all the paperwork and all the medical checks in a timely fashion. So again, we've worked pretty hard during this time period to meet these individual families and work with families throughout. So I'd say if there's a question or concern regarding physicals, to reach out to Dr. Donald, as your season nursing, and Mr. Earl, if you don't get satisfaction, Dr. McDonald. And that's, I think we're off to the next part of the agenda.
Dr. Arnold, I just wanted to point out that I think that there was an issue with your audio there. So
I'm not sure.
I think I understood what you were saying, but just wanted to point that out.
Thank you. I did not know.
It didn't happen during your presentation, so.
Very good. I'll have to tell my kids to stop streaming videos.
Maybe it's overuse. Yes. Okay, so we're going to move along with our agenda. We come to the point where we're here to hear the committee reports. So we're going to begin with administration and facilities. And for that report, I'm going to turn it over to Tony Flores.
Thank you. The committee met on July 21st. It was a week ago. Dr. Adderhold discussed the restart and reopening plan with the committee. Everybody's heard it today, so I have nothing to add from the minutes. As he also mentioned, there are 6 policies that we reviewed. These are on the agenda for the first reading tonight, and also an emergency adoption. There'll be a second reading scheduled, as usual, at our September board meeting. Concerning the diversity equity position, applications have been submitted and are currently being reviewed. The interview process will begin in early August with the recommendation to the board at the September 1st meeting. Then we just had an update on the athletics, and as and the NJSIAA released phase 1 guidelines for beginning athletics in mid-July with health and safety restrictions. And the district will not participate in the phase 1 of athletics and will continue to monitor for updates from the NJDOE and NJSIAA. There was an agreement discussed concerning the church. For people who don't know, the First Presbyterian Church in Plainsboro and Wyckoff share a parking lot with an agreement that dates back to the 80s. And the committee recommends approval of this agreement at our meeting tonight. The special education review consultant has completed a virtual survey for parents and is currently reviewing the results. The consultant is in the process of planning for in-person parent input when school reopens in the fall. Then the committee discussed referendum updates. HVAC upgrades at High School North, Millstone River, and Wyckoff are underway and making steady progress. The chiller startups began on July 17th, and buildings should be cooling down as time progresses. Masonry demolition for security vestibules and toilet rooms at various schools are in progress. Work for new walls are being prepared for the installation of ceramic tile. Phase 1 site work at High School South is underway, and currently they're milling the pavement in the front parking lot. Phase 2 bid opening was held on July 21st, 2020, with an award for approval at tonight's meeting. Contractors are making great progress on the addition at Grover Middle School. The first floor slabs have been poured, and the roofer is planning to start work very soon. Work continues with the submittals and preparations to mobilize construction and community. Phase 2 bid opening for community was held on the 21st, and an awards schedule on tonight's agenda. Concerning the equity update, the district equity team will resume its work this week, and will meet with the African American Parents Support Group in early August to continue their work. Our next meeting is scheduled for August 25th. And that's it. Thank you. Any questions?
Okay. Seeing as there's no questions, I'll turn it over now for the report for the curriculum committee, and that goes over to Dana Krug.
Hello, everyone. I see we're clearing the room with our committee reports. Anyway, we also met on July 21st. This is the curriculum committee. We first discussed the annual district professional development scheduled for administrators from August 11th through the 14th, and for new teacher orientation from August 24th to the 27th. The district intends to run a variety of sessions to support the return to school in hybrid and virtual environments. All summer professional development will be held virtually. Next, we discussed some digital tools that are being considered. Dr. Nathan shared an example from the K-12 Flexible Tools and Content Subcommittee, and digital resources such as Pear Deck, Gizmos, Pivot, Dreambox, Google Apps, and more will allow our teachers and students to use technology to connect, collaborate, create, learn, and build skill sets in virtual and hybrid learning environments. An additional resource, Linkit, was shared with the committee. Linkit is a data management and assessment warehouse. It provides districts with the ability to collect, sort, display, and manage data from a variety of assessments already utilized by the districts, and provides options for assessment platforms and processes in our hybrid and virtual classrooms. Teams, as part of the reentry planning process, are learning more about this resource and how it can support data-driven decisions for instruction. The committee also recommends approval of evaluation instruments for the 2021 school year, as we do every year. The first is the Charlotte Danielson Framework for Teaching 2013 as the evaluation instrument for all certificated staff except administrators. The New Jersey Principals Evaluation for Professional Learning as the evaluation instrument for administrators. The highly effective option and the alternative evaluation rubric are being used as part of the evaluation process for highly effective teachers. The committee also recommends approval of the professional development consultants from the Asia Society Center for Global Education to provide training sessions, coaching, and instructional resources on global competence during the 2021 school year at a total cost not to exceed $3,500. This is part of the district's strategic goal to work. The committee also recommends approval of many technology purchases. These will also appear in a different part of the agenda, not in the curriculum section, but these are all enhancements that will help us to run our hybrid and virtual programs this fall. So Cisco replacement of access points at a cost of $190,364. Cisco security for the yearly renewal of the district antivirus internet security and internet filtering services at a cost of just about $90,000. For Microsoft for the yearly renewal, all the district's Microsoft licenses, including Windows, Office, server software, and email at a cost of a little over $63,000. case is a yearly renewal of maintenance and support for district ticket system and asset inventory system at a cost of a little over $90,000. The VMware yearly renewal for licenses for district remote desktops at a cost of $217,000. Flex EA, which is a yearly renewal to support the additional classroom phones that were added as part of the security initiative at a cost of $46,614. SmartNet, which is a yearly renewal to support district network hardware at a cost of almost $91,000, and purchase 450 Dell laptops at a cost of $434,250, 400 video converters at a cost of $14,000, 400 document cameras at a cost of $85,600, purchased 500 wireless headphones at a cost of $87,500, purchased 24 thermal cameras at a cost of $131,583.12, and purchased Zoom video conferencing software license 700 of them at a cost of $72,000. The committee also recommends approval of several professional development opportunities, including 4 teachers and 1 administrator per session to participate in the Rider University Science Education and Literacy Center Next Generation Science Assessment Professional Learning Workshop series that's going to be held, that Rider University is running, and that's 4 sessions during the upcoming school year at a cost of $300. 1 staff member to attend a virtual AP Economics Micro and Macro online summer institute from August 3rd to the 7th at a cost of $850, and another staff member to attend an AP Environmental Science Summer Institute with virtual as well, offered through Marin on the Bay, which was in July at a cost of $625. The committee also recommends approval of community education programs for the fall for students in grades K through 8. Now, if you will allow me, I'm going to read. These are all going to be virtual, and I know there's a lot of parents out there who are looking for things to do with their kids after school. And there's also some things that are going to be during the school. So I'll just give you some highlights. And tomorrow on the, if you go on the district website tomorrow, there'll be, I hope it's tomorrow, there'll be under departments, community ed, there'll be a place for you to look at these offerings and to decide if you want to sign your child up. So there's things like amazing pottery, painting, animation, and coding, bricks for kids. These are going to all be virtual. Scratch programming, chess, civil and acoustical engineering, coding and game design, a class in using Crayola products, digital music, elementary cartoon and drawing, environmental engineering. There's going to be a language arts program for grades 3 through 8. There's going to be tutoring for several different math opportunities of tutoring. There's going to be college application essay writing, introduction to Python, another chess academy, learning to code, more learning to code with Scratch, Let's Dance Bollywood, Mad Science, making toys, marine engineering, mixed media art, on the court basketball, small group instruction for band, and another one for strings. Something about making inventions. There's going to be a cheer program, a tennis program, theater games, web design, and something called Wonderful Wizardry and Mixed Media Art. And then they're also offering a virtual AM and a virtual PM EDP, extended day. So I'm going to give a little bit of background on that. So if you need your child to be, engaged for the time before school starts, the hour before school starts, there's going to be a program called Mindful Mornings, and this is a 1-hour program that allows students to warm up their brains before beginning their day of school. An instructor will lead the group through mindful activities such as journaling, self-reflection, morning shares, small-scale art activities, and morning stretches. There's a monthly registration for this, and students will be given a box of supplies needed for the specific month, and the parents can pick them up curbside prior to the new month at a location provided by the Community Ed Office. And afternoon virtual EDP will also take place once the school day ends, and can be virtual, and this will be virtual. Each day of the week has a specific theme. There'll be Make It Mondays, which will be art, Tested Tuesdays, science, Worldly Wednesdays will be service projects and languages, Thirst for Knowledge Thursdays will be book and writing clubs, and Fun Fridays will be group games, family activities, and other things like that. Along with the specific daily themed activity, students will also participate in a physical activity and a group closing activity. And the same will be with a monthly registration, just as the AM program was. And there's a couple of things that are going to be offered during lunchtime. So there's going to be a lunch bunch, which is lunchtime at home can be quiet, but with friends and other students also participating in virtual school can be better. Lunch bunch provides students with a virtual social gathering space where they can participate in group discussions, daily challenges, and general sharing. The format is less structured to allow students to simply be themselves and unwind. This is an hour-long program facilitated and supervised by a community education staff member. And then there's also going to be a lunchtime quiz bowl. So you can, each day students will be able to participate in trivia games, spelling bees, mind-bending activities, and other games, all virtual. Laugh with us as we try to guess what's hidden in a box in a 20-question style game, or might even do some Pictionary. This is an hour-long program, and it'll be facilitated and supervised by community education staff. And then finally, there's another program that Community Ed is offering, which is Virtual Family Fun Friday programs. These are for families, one-time offering centering on a specific theme, and they can register for a choice you can learn a new skill, such as sign language, animation, crochet, or yoga, or another opportunity is families can register to partake in some friendly competition with other families by playing bingo or other family games. These events will be about 2 hours. So please check out the district website, and they should be available starting tomorrow. And our committee will next meet on Tuesday, August 25th. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for the curriculum committee? All right, we'll turn it over now to Louisa Ho for the report coming out of the Finance Committee.
Finance Committee met on July 7th for a general discussion of COVID-19 issues related to the district. The committee met again on July 21st for a normal meeting. At the July 21st meeting, the committee reviewed the financial reports for May 2020. The committee also reviewed finance items for the July 28th board meeting. The committee reviewed technology purchases due to COVID-19 using cooperative pricing vendors. There will be a motion on the agenda to approve the purchase of adaptive playground equipment using a cooperative pricing vendor for a new pre-K playground at Murray's Hawk. The agenda also includes the acceptance of bids for special education transportation routes for 2021, along with a jointure agreement and 2 cancellations. There is a motion to improve virtual professional development that will occur over the summer. End of year financial rollover. Staff shared that due to the pandemic and the state's memo on using anticipated balances, the year end has been complicated by PPE and other COVID-related purchases. The district has used some of its anticipated balances to make some strategic purchases of PPE and other COVID-related equipment. Solar renewable energy credits. The district's 72 energy credits were sold on July 15th for $223.50 each, totaling $16,092. I was going to talk about construction updates, but Tony has covered most of that. I would just add that the High School South Phase 2 bids were opened on July 21st. Since the committee meeting, the bids were opened, and on the agenda tonight is a motion to reject the bids because even the lowest responsive bidder exceeds the cost estimates for this project. On summer projects, staff shared that the roofing work at Grover Middle School is almost complete. Weather has delayed the final work. The contractor is preparing to start work at High School North soon. Paving work for the High School North bus parking depot has been completed and is awaiting the fence installation. Pre-construction meetings for the salt storage sheds at Village and High School North began last week, and the work will begin shortly. There was a pre-construction meeting for the HVAC unit work at Hawk, and that work will begin soon. For the Energy Savings Improvement Program, staff shared with the committee that the work is in full swing. HVAC work is continuing at High School South. Many of the classroom unit ventilators have been installed. The rooftop units are up and running, and the control work and further installation of ductwork and plumbing continues. The LED lighting retrofit work is continuing there as well. At Dutch Neck, HVAC work is moving along swiftly. At Town Center, HVAC controls work continues. At Grover, water conservation measure improvements will start this week. High School North computer room air conditioning work bid documents will be advertised this week, along with emergency lighting bids and Grover Middle School mechanical room improvements. Solar panel installation has begun at Millstone River. Envelope repair work will be starting at North this week. Work on the roof at North has been delayed because of problems with the design. The start of this work has been delayed until the end of October. The contractor is waiting on design approval for other district projects. For community ed, staff are looking into ways for community ed to provide the extended day program because many families need it to supplement the hybrid option. Staff are developing program scenarios based on CDC guidelines for spacing and materials. The CDC guidelines will increase staffing needs and reduce program capacity. We also discussed the school reopening plan, which Dr. Aderholt has already covered tonight. There was no other business. The committee's next meeting is Tuesday, August 25th.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for the Finance Committee? Okay, seeing as there's none, we will move on now to the consent agenda, which is the voting portion of our agenda. We begin with administration items. We have items 1 through 12, and we have 4 addendum. Addendum 1 and, or should I say addenda. Addendum 1 and addendum 2 are special education settlements. Addendum 3 is a child care resolution, and addendum 4 is an HIB appeal denial. So can I please get a motion on administration items 1 to 12 plus those 4 addenda? Robin and Martin. Are there any questions or comments on the administration items?
Madam President, I would just note that for the addenda number 4 for the HIB appeal, it notes a case number. It should also note and its accompanying matter because it was 2 cases together. So that was the only thing I would just add.
Thank you. So with that, Robin and Martin make the motion, and I'll thank Chris. Thank you.
Okay, we'll start with Mr. Chang.
Yes.
Mr. Flares.
Yes.
Ms. Ho. Ms. Krug.
Yes.
Ms. McCune.
Yes.
Mr. Whitfield.
Yes.
Ms. Zovich.
Yes.
Ms. Juliana.
Yes.
Ms. Kish.
Yes. Can we please get a motion on curriculum items 1 through 7? Rachel and Graylin. Are there any questions on the curriculum items? Thank you, Chris.
Okay, we'll start with Mr. Flares.
Yes.
Ms. Ho.
Yes.
Ms. Krug.
Yes.
Ms. McCune.
Yes.
Mr. Whitfield.
Yes.
Ms. Zovich.
Yes.
Mr. Chang.
Yes.
Ms. Juliana.
Yes.
Ms. Kish.
Yes. Can I please get a motion on the finance items 1 through 11 plus the 1 finance addendum? Isaac and Louisa. Are there any questions or comments on the finance items? Thank you, Chris.
We'll start with Ms. Ho.
Yes.
Ms. Krug.
Yes.
Ms. McCune.
Yes.
Mr. Whitfield.
Yes.
Ms. Zovich.
Yes.
Mr. Chang.
Yes.
Mr. Flares.
Yes.
Ms. Juliana.
Yes.
And Ms. Kish.
Yes. Tonight we have, under personnel, we have 1 item, but we have 5 addenda. Addendum 1, 2, and 3 are just additional personnel agenda items. Addendum 4 is the sidebar agreement with the WWPEA, and addendum 5 is the termination of employee contract. So can I please get a motion on the 5 addenda plus the 1 item on our agenda? Tony and Dana. Are there any questions or comments on the personnel items? Thanks, Chris.
Okay, we'll start with Ms. Krug.
Yes.
Ms. McCune.
Yes.
Mr. Whitfield.
Yes.
Ms. Zovich.
Yes.
Mr. Chang.
Yes.
Mr. Flares.
Yes.
Ms. Ho.
Yes.
Ms. Juliana,
Yes.
Ms. Case.
Yes.
Okay.
Just like to take a minute. What we just voted on included 3 retirements that I'd like to acknowledge. Carla Royster, the assistant principal at High School South, is retiring after 31 and a half years with the district. Juliana Johnson, teacher resource specialist for curriculum and instruction, is resigning after 31 years in the district. And Mark Royster, a security aide at High School North, is retiring after 23 years in the district. And I want to wish them all the best in their retirement. Stay safe and healthy. And thank you so much for all that you did for our students in WWP. Can I please get a motion to approve the minutes from our last meeting and closed session on June 23rd? Martin and Graylin. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Are there any liaison reports? Is there any new business? That brings us to the second opportunity for public comment. The board invites thoughts and reactions on agenda items and items of concern from members of the community who have submitted written comments on the form that was open and available on the district website up until the start of this second opportunity for public comment. All submissions containing all required fields completed will be viewed during the meeting and included as public comment in the official minutes. Each comment should be directed to the presiding officer, not individual members of the board, and will be read by the board attorney for 3 minutes in accordance with board policy 0167. If the comment extends beyond those 3 minutes, the full comment will be submitted and available as part of the meeting's public record. This public comment period shall be limited to 15 minutes. So I'll thank Dr. Hatterholt for sharing his screen and thank Mr. Toscano for reading the comments.
Starting at 36. Okay, our first comment is from Libby Barak, 36 Scott Avenue, West Windsor Township. The comment: I am concerned that the school reopening plan does not directly address or offer a solution to the 2 communities who need it the most. Full-time working parents who require full-time care and special needs students who require consistent in-person education. Neighboring townships have offered solutions to these populations: provider for extended program, in-school, and special program for IEP students. In the lack of updates and clear information, parents have started looking into private schools that don't accommodate IEP needs and are not in the financial reach of many. The next comment is from Kasif Anwar, 52 Woodland Drive, Plainsboro. Number 1, how will it be decided who will be in A week and who will be in B week? Number 2, for hybrid, what is the amount of time allotted to students to get home from school but before their additional virtual learning? 3, will grading for elementary go back to how it was, or will it be narrative again? 4, how will standardized tests be handled? 5, what will happen with any musical activities such as band or choir? 6, what can parents, PTAs do to help bring this challenging year a success, make this challenging year a success? 7, with the increased body of evidence that middle schoolers and high schoolers naturally sleep later in the night and suffer consequences, serious consequences from sleep deprivation, can we take advantage of this year to have middle and high school classes start later in the day? Next comment is from Racha Taigai, Grover's Mill Road, Plainsboro. Thanks for a very comprehensive presentation. 2 questions. Could you elaborate on how labs will work for high schoolers who are doing virtual only programs? Additionally, how are electives like robotics going to be adapted to students who have selected a virtual only program? Next comment is from Annette Fuchs, email address West Windsor. Our young students like kindergarten will also receive Chromebooks or other form of device for their virtual learning. The next comment is from Steve Albin, 53 Krebs Road, Plainsboro. If a student in hybrid requires 10-day quarantine, will that student be able to join those same classes virtually? Next comment is from Melinda Chen, 21 Arnold Drive, Princeton Junction. Will there be any alternatives offered for students who happen to be taking Princeton courses since the rotating schedule currently guarantees conflicts? Next question from Gloria Chapel, 11 Ryder Place, Princeton Junction. Can the district look into how Lakewood, New Jersey School District is planning to offer COVID testing every other week to students and staff? Can the district explore a similar approach for WWP schools by partnering with Rutgers University or other local state institutions? 2, when can we expect to receive additional information on how DIL programs will be run in the fall? Number 3, what is the protocol for positive test identification, student or teacher? The next comment is from Joy Horton, 827 Monty Court, Ewing. The African American Support Group, as a part of our student social activism summer series, will be hosting a diversity, equity, and inclusion workshop, which will be held on Thursday, July 30th at 7 p.m. Via Zoom. This discussion will be moderated and led by High School South graduate Jillian Medina as a part of her Harvard Sparks public service program. Also on Thursday, August 6th, we will have a social action in college workshop, which will feature our student alumni who will discuss their college experience, which is important to hear about in this virtual learn. Students interested in joining in on the discussion can contact us via email. The email address is listed. We welcome the opportunity from the community to continue to dialogue with us on the issues of social justice and stress the importance of hearing from our children as it relates to issues of racism, diversity, equality, and inclusion. Thank you. The next comment is from Veronica Camino, 41 Galston Drive, Princeton Junction. I am stunned that not one single board member asked one question after the school opening presentation, considering that we were talking about 10,000 students' health. Here is one question. What would happen in the event that there is a positive case in one of the buildings? Will all the buildings be closed? How many cases will be needed to be positive before the building closes? Who will do the contact tracing? Do you foresee voluntary pulling? Do you foresee voluntary pulling their kids from the school in the event there is one single case in one building? Do not tell me these board members represent the community. The next comment is from Bruce Semestrelli, 346 Clarksville Road, Princeton Junction. Comment: times we face are unique. There are so many questions that we have. The uncertainty of these times cause us anxiety. As Dr. Adderhold said in his presentation, we are all in this together. With the same commitment to each other we had in the spring, we can do what is best for our students and staff this upcoming school year. I would like to thank the central administration staff who have participated in the numerous planning meetings. I know how much time each of my colleagues have given in helping to mold these plans. To the Board of Education, thank you for all the meetings you attended over the last 3 weeks. Thank you for your commitment to education. We are all in this together. And Madam President, that is the last of the comments.
Thank you, Mr. Toscano. Dr. Adderhold, is there anything that you would like to say now that the second opportunity for public comment has closed? You're muted.
You're muted.
Thank you. I can try to address some of the questions. First of all, is my audio okay? I know you said there was problems before. All right, thank you. We kicked all the kids off. So there's a lot of questions, and there's going to be a need for follow-up to answer some of those. With respect to contact tracing, it doesn't take much to shut a school down, right? So if you start playing out what this looks like, if there is a COVID positive case or a COVID suspected case, there's different notice requirements with the health departments. So the local Department of Health, working with the school administration, will work together to determine the necessary needs of communication. And very quickly, you could see a classroom case turn into a school closure or a quarantine very quickly. And then you have to start looking across buildings due to siblings, depending on the length of exposure, depending on the impacts, potentially staff members that are married, children on buses, co-curriculars. Remember, contact tracing talks about a prolonged period of being within 6 feet of one another for 10 minutes or more. Contact within 48 hours prior to the onset of symptoms. If you start playing that out, closure for a school, a class, a bus, a district could come very quickly. And then you start talking about a short-term 2 to 5 day closure, while the local Department of Health and the school administration does a series of contact tracing with nurses and counselors and others, and then potentially go to a prolonged closure due to contact up 10 to 14 days, depending on what we're facing. Those are following CDC and DOH guidelines, and then we would be in a period of moving everyone to virtual. There was one of the questions was respect to if a hybrid student becomes ill or needs to be quarantined, can they then participate in the virtual partner classes? The answer to that's going to be yes. That we'll have to work with the students and their families to make it necessary. Depends on the grade level, but the answer is yes. The easy answer is yes. There's questions about devices. We asked specifically on the surveys that went out to families what the status and need for families and devices are. We had the K through 3, K through 4 level, I think it was just under 400 families identified need for a device for students of that age. We are prepared to distribute to the families that identified. If families have additional technology needs, they should be notifying the WWPSIS or our technology department, and we are currently in the process of acquiring additional Chromebooks for grades, I think it's 2 through 4 for distribution. And we are currently looking at another purchase order for additional support for K1. But we do have additional devices to pass out should families have need. And one of the things that we were very fortunate about with our families' availability of devices, as well as the district's availability of resources, that every family was able to be connected either through the hotspot that was provided by the district or based on the family's ability to provide access to the internet, and every student had availability of a device last spring. It's our intention to make sure that that happens again in this fall, and it's really a requirement for participation, because every hybrid student will be participating virtual. So we need to make sure that students have devices. Questions around testing are fluid and evolving because we do not have guidance yet from some organizations with respect to what standardized testing looks like this year. What we do know is that PSAT and SAT was going to go virtual, and then they had some difficulty in the spring, and then they went back to in-person, and now many test sites have bumped into April to try to buy space in August because we're just not ready for on-site testing. And then there's an unknown, quite frankly, about what's going to happen with PSAT and SAT. With respect to state standardized testing, we are hearing that the feds are not going to give waivers again, but that's not a foregone conclusion. So that means there maybe need to be some form of test taking. But once again, we're not sure what that's going to look like. Then there's district assessments, and that's a different conversation, maybe for a different presentation, but there will be assessments provided, both the hybrid and virtual students. But I think the question was more specifically to standardized testing. Labs is a whole nother challenge. In fact, any kind of class that requires some kind of interaction, it's not just the virtual students that are going to be impacted. Labs traditionally are 4 students working together around a lab station. Well, clearly in social distancing, that can't happen. So even an in-person lab is going to look vastly different. And so we did have access to certain software platforms about virtual labs. We will be doing some things with virtual partners, with an in-class partner for the high schools, where a virtual partner can team up through a breakout room in a Zoom meeting with an in-person partner. But there's going to be a lot. This is going to be, again, fluid and evolving. Any kind of class that requires like music, orchestra, choir, foods, culinary, robotics, woodshop, is going to look incredibly different. And we just need to be mindful that it's not just for the virtual kids that it's going to be different. It's going to also be for anyone who's coming on site. On-site experiences are going to be nothing like they were before. And so I don't have full answers. Now, I'm not going to pretend that we've figured out everything here. There's a lot of curricular impacts that we're currently working on with teams. But what we do know is it's not going to be school as normal. And so the earlier we can all come to terms with that, the better. As far as contact tracing, I made comments earlier that we are actively looking at what our responsibilities could be and what that could look like. But until a high turnaround test like a Rutgers test, 48-hour type of turnaround could come into play. That is something that I've talked to a couple superintendents about, looking at trying to enter into some kind of co-op agreement. We're not there yet because it's just really being announced. And while Lakewood made an announcement, I think yesterday or today, there's not a lot of detail out to what that actually looks like. So, be wary of the headline to drive policy. So sometimes the headlines don't necessarily translate into actual process. So we need to learn a little bit more about what everyone's doing. And over the next couple of weeks, you're going to hear a lot of different districts doing a lot of different things as plans roll out. And I would suggest that it's really important that we just sort of pause and not try to compare against every other district, because every district's scenarios are different. Facilities are different, contracts are different, staffing ratios are different, size of classrooms are different, contractual minutes and preparations are different. We're just not one district is necessarily in the same boat with respect to how this all works. We might be all, in the same storm, but our boats are all different. Back to you, Ms. Gage.
Dave, can I just ask you a quick question? So tomorrow, parents can expect that probably tomorrow afternoon, can expect to get an email which will have a link to the plan document, which is 60+ pages, a link to the video of our meeting tonight, and the PowerPoint.
That's good.
So when parents receive that email and take time to digest it and then have questions, can you please give advice on where parents should go to ask those questions?
Yeah, so some of them are going to be building-based questions, right? So they can go to their child's building principal. Some are going to be more generic, and they might be curriculum-based. But if they if they don't have an answer through a building principal, they could always write to the WWPSIS email, and we can include that within the message that goes out. And that's a generic email address that we're been monitoring, and we can do another FAQ that comes out and try to provide additional answers. It is, as you can imagine, when we are receiving a tremendous amount of questions, it can be very difficult to try to respond to every parent in live time, as we're currently working through all the planning meetings and trying to figure things out. And parents were very gracious and patient in the correspondences. But there are times where we'll get an email in the morning and then a follow-up email saying you didn't respond to my email. But in the meantime, we were in 8 hours of meetings. So we're doing our level best to respond in a timely manner. But we also know that there's a lot of decisions and answers that parents want and need to make important decisions. At this point, many families, 99% of families have narrowed in. Some families who are traveling or are unavailable or leaving the district haven't finished the survey, but we're really close to 100% completion on those surveys. So we really have a good sense of where our families are to date with their selections. But we are weeks behind with building our master schedules. The guidance came out 3 weeks after we locked our high school master schedule in. And we are still building the framework of our elementary or middle school schedule. And as we build the schedule, all the nuanced questions are coming up. We've had 6 hours of meetings today just on looking at 3 different areas of aspects, small aspects of the schedules across different grade bands. And it's just that each student population in each grade level, sometimes it requires nuanced discussions about how we're going to provide support. KDLI, for instance, kindergarten DLI, whether it's Mandarin or Spanish and Hawk or Dutch Neck, is very complex because you have 50 students with one teacher, right? And so kindergarten, even if you have half the students going virtual and half the students going in person, and you're doing a morning 9 to 12, 9:30 to 12, or an afternoon, was it 1 to 3:30? Even if you're in those windows of time, you only have one teacher for 50 students. So it doesn't work. Like the model needs to be looked at. And so then you have a staffing gap because you only have one teacher. So right now we're looking at every piece that works well if you're in person in a half day, but doesn't work well if you're in a hybrid in a virtual world in COVID. And so it's just requiring a lot of discussions to try to figure out how we're going to support students and programs with a financial gap and budgetary concerns and staffing ratios and social distancing and making sure we're honoring class caps of 12 and all those kind of nuanced. So I would say long answer to send the questions in. Just please know we will continue to try to update and build towards like a new FAQ. And if we're not responding directly, we will be responding.
Thank you. we're at the end of our meeting. I just want to once again acknowledge the hard work of so many people. Multiple authors creating a document is very challenging. I want to acknowledge the hard work of my board colleagues in the multitude of meetings that we had to discuss this plan and ask our questions. I would say hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours were spent collectively working on these documents, this plan. And the board is probably responsible for hundreds of questions. Dave can attest to the number of pages of questions that were emailed to him over the last few weeks. Not pictured on our screen, I want to thank Kia Bergman and Kat Armiano. Did I say her name right name? But Kat and Kia did an amazing job of cleaning everything up and organizing all of our comments, and I just want to acknowledge that as well. Anyway, we worked really hard, and we have a lot of hard work ahead. So I want to thank everybody for understanding, being flexible, your patience in working together so that we can all take care of each other and provide top education experience safely to our kids and keep our staff and our teachers safe. And with that, can I get a motion to adjourn? Isaac and Martin, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Stay healthy. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of August, and we'll see you. We don't have another meeting for about another month, beginning of September, right, Dave?
September 1st.
Stay safe, everybody. Thank you.
Bye. Have a good night.